Hi, Apartment Therapy. I'm Suzi Siegel. Welcome to my 515 square foot apartment in Queens, New York. When people complain and bellyache about, oh, New York this, blah, 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 I'm like, come to Queens, bro. So I am a little bit obsessed with Queens. I call it Deep Queens. I grew up in an outer borough, 718 area code. So I wanted, when you first walk in, I wanted to really drive home the fact that you're in Queens. And I love how sort of anti-cool Queens is. When you come in the house, the first thing you see, my shrine to 718 and Queens. The second is the little eating, dining area, which is outside the kitchen, which flows right into this living space, which I also share with my office and my bed. This is my little sleeping nook, and I put up a really cool sliding wall sort of shade situation, so that I don't have to look at my bed during the day when I'm working here at my desk. I work from home. What I love about it is that it gives you privacy, but it also lets the light through because I do have 2 windows in the bedroom. And if you'll notice in here, everything is the same color. It's all pink, the bed frame, the panels. I chose it to be all one color because there's so much color and texture and pattern in the rest of this house. It sort of shouldn't be like a carnival like the rest of life. It should be a place where you settle and you're not busy. And I found these panels, they come in panels of 4. I hired a TaskRabbit again to put these up. But I love the idea that the wall behind the bed is really soft. It just adds to kind of the sleepy feeling. This is New York City, and many people store stuff under their bed, but I chose not to do that because there's a rule in Feng Shui that says that you shouldn't sleep on top of clutter, which I think is really good, right? It's like we all go to sleep and our minds are spinning and all of that, and I think we don't realize that having a bunch of clutter and things under the bed actually sort of affect the energy of the space, so no clutter. This is my work from home area. I did decide to put my desk out in the living space. I wanted to be able to look out and have the sun come in. And another fix is if you look out the window, you will see that I am facing a brick wall and other apartments. So I thought the best way that I could let the sun in and have some privacy is to put up these hanging sort of floating shelves for my plants. Some of this stuff in here is cheap and some of it is not cheap. And my rule about when to spend money, if you're able to, is if you're touching it every day. If you're touching something every day, it matters to you and it's important, and that's the thing you should spend money on. So this is a really elegant desk that I love the shape of the curves. I don't like looking at wires, so I love the idea that all these ugly wires go in here. You close it, you don't have to look at any of it. And just how thin this drawer is, you do need a drawer, but I love the fact that it makes me really think about what I need every day in that drawer. It makes me really careful about what I have in my working space. Storage, obviously, it's a big deal for a New Yorker in a studio. I found this great pink locker. I did put this together myself. What I love about it is it just takes up so little space, but there's so much in there that I don't want to look at. So I don't have a linen closet because this is a studio apartment, so all my linens are in here. All my towels, all my sheets, all my pillowcases. These 2 blue dressers here, they sort of function as a place to put stuff and a surface, but of course they are also to hide my rock and roll t-shirt collection and all my yoga clothes and that stuff. Once a year I do have a party for Queens Pride, and that's the only time my friends come into Queens. It's a big joke, but we kick off Pride in Queens first. We have the first Pride Day. So I get 20 people in here, and I have a system of what I call secret seating. Things that have multiple uses. My style is informed by a lot of different things. I grew up in the Bronx, and so there's a lot of sort of like Latino elements. I also grew up in the 80s. I was a heavy metal head, so there's always some mix of things that I love and color that I get obsessed with. And so when I was intimidated by designing this apartment, it's the first apartment I ever owned. I'm the first generation buyer of all my New York City Bronx family, and I didn't know what to do. I'm not a designer, this is not what I do. And what helped me break through that sort of I can't was I knew how to get dressed. I knew how to mix colors. I knew how to mix patterns. I had ideas around getting dressed. And I just sort of took that sort of creativity, which is very specific, and I redirected it toward my home. Think about your couch as things you would wear together. Think about it as layers instead of thinking about it as a couch. I'm very, very particular about what comes into the space because there's not a lot of space. Everything has to have a function, if not two functions. I grew up in like a tchotchke household with a ton of bric-a-brac, and when I struck out on my own, I knew I didn't want any of that. Even though there's a lot going on and it's interesting to look at, there's not a lot of stuff. This couch is blue. It's navy blue, which I thought was an interesting choice because I like the idea of something being neutral, but not being beige or gray. So the idea that like it's dark enough that you can have these pops of color, but it's not like an expected color. And then once I saw through this artwork, this Dominican artist, that this could be done, I ended up branching out a little bit and ending up with some more colors. This is from an artist from Peru that I found because he had a mural on a Peruvian sandwich shop in my neighborhood. This is from my dad. I'm a Buddhist and he got this in Nepal. This is from my grandma Betty. This is probably the oldest thing in the house, or one of the oldest things. Everybody's been talking about unexpected red, the pop of unexpected red. I must have known that somewhere in my DNA before, because this red lamp by Ligné Rosette, I believe, it's so simple, but it just really pops against the pink wall. When I first moved into this apartment, I was obsessed with all kinds of pinks and lavenders, and I thought, can I do that? Can you make your tiny studio apartment 5 different colors of pink? They almost could be the same color during different times of day. I didn't know what I was doing, and I went into the paint store and told him I wanted 1 bucket of each color, and the guy was like, I think you're making a mistake. I'm like, no, 1 wall, 1 color. The good news, I guess my recommendation from this is don't listen to people when they tell you it's a bad idea. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a vision. This idea of, can I make the space feel like there's different ecosystems by having different colors on the walls? I think that the minimalism of Buddhism is brought into the space by me being really, really selective about what comes in here. And I have my little space here that I meditate in. The best advice I ever got about meditation was to always have one space where you do it and a space that feels uplifted. And the advice I got was wake up, pee, don't check your phone, and sit. And that is the best meditation advice I ever got because it's so simple. And I have my beautiful little space where I sit every morning. This is our dining ecosystem. I chose these red chairs because they were transparent, which I thought just helped you sort of see through and light travel. I grew up at a time where everything had to be matchy-matchy, like earrings, belt, pocketbook, shoes, and so I try so hard not to match. But everything in here sort of matches in a chaotic way. I was never able to break away from that. But the rug really helped me define what the colors were of the space. This reminds me of my entire childhood growing up in the 80s in the Bronx. It's a photographer named Alfred Gonzalez. He owns a frame store. This little kid is like a b-boy in his members only jacket. And I just always walk by, I look at their expressions. I see with this kid biting the inside of his lip, and he was a little bit shy. I think about all of them and what was going on in their heads, and I wonder where they are today. I have no idea. Hi, welcome to my boudoir area. Before I moved in, it was a regular New York City door. So I hired a TaskRabbit. I can't recommend them more. What is this room? I don't know. It's a little tiny ante room between the kitchen area and the bathroom. You only get this in a queen studio. They call it different things, and I didn't know what to do with it. I thought, what I do love is clothes. So I thought, how can I make this an actual dressing room? Like, who gets a dressing room, right? In a studio. But that's what it became. I call it my boudoir because that just sounds funny. I also made it a little bit of an art gallery. It's also where my hamper and my laundry are. So it's doing a lot of things. I love to travel. I've been all over the world. Each of these it comes from a different place. All of these things are kind of like my little audience. I think about it when I'm picking out what I'm gonna wear. The bathroom is very simple. White just felt very functional, and I feel the same way about the kitchen. The kitchen is also white. I don't love to be in the kitchen. It is not a place where I get a lot of joy, so I just wanted to keep it really simple. So all white, no muss, no fuss, get in, get out, do what you have to do. I have always been, for some reason, obsessed with exit signs, and I don't know what it is. It's that they're everywhere and nobody notices them, kind of like birds, right? It's like they're just a part of the scenery and people don't pay attention. And I think they're really cool, and I love the way they look. And I'm a Buddhist person, and when you take the Buddhist vow, they give you what's called a warrior name. But I'm also Jewish. So I thought, how can I incorporate these two things? And I had a tattoo artist in Israel come up with a tattoo style in Hebrew for the word warrior, so that it encompassed both of them. So I found online some random company in the Midwest somewhere. I called some poor person in the Midwest and I was like, I have this PDF and it's Hebrew, and would you be able to put it on an exit sign? He was like, lady, I don't know what you're talking about, but if it's on a PDF, I can put it on an exit sign. So now I have this beautiful Hebrew Buddhist exit sign that just reminds me of what's important every time I look up. So I wrote a book called Tiny New York, and it is exactly that. It's about the tiniest things in the biggest city. And I was inspired by literally just walking around New York one day. I noticed that there was this tiny alleyway between two buildings, and somebody had stuck a store in there. And I thought, it is so incredible what New Yorkers do with so little. Like, that is the hustle, the resourcefulness, the fact that we have so little space and we manage to do so much with it. And that just sort of opened up this idea for a book. New York is known for big and giant. What an interesting thing to flip the bigness of New York on its head and look at it through the lens of the most quintessential New York things, but find the tiniest version of those things that we're famous for. A lot of it to me is really an immigrant story, and I realized that the more I covered stories, that the reason we have so much hustle and grit, the reason we do so much with so little, is because people came here with nothing. They could afford hardly any space, and then you have these crazy sort of amazing, beautiful New York things that are the opposite of giant chain stores, right? They are the opposite of sort of big industrial complex. They're just like little original, just amazing pieces of hustle that are happening in tiny places. And so that's what the book Tiny New York is about.